Hey there fellow YouTubers, this is Anthony with Home Guitar Mods. In this week's toning video, we're actually going to be doing a build. This week, I'm going to show you how you can build an acoustic treatment that'll work in any room on any budget. Let's get started. Alright, so like I said, we're going to work on building an acoustic treatment. Now first off, what is an acoustic treatment? An acoustic treatment is any device used to alter the acoustics in a room. Pretty simple. So whether you're using foam blocks to absorb sound or using diffusers to diffuse the sound and spread it out throughout a room, all of those things are used to treat the acoustics in your room. Now we're going to work on just a cheap acoustic panel built out of fabric and a wood frame. These are hollow and don't have any foam behind them, although it can be added. I built this frame, which is 1 foot by 2 feet, as well as the both 2 square foot frames behind me for under 20 bucks, and I have more material to go. I built these using hand tools and things that you can find inexpensively at a hardware store, or even something you could probably knock at a neighbor's door and borrow. Now let's jump into the build. Alright, so here we're out in the garage working on this project. I have two of my 2 foot by 2 foot frames done. But first off, what is this project? Really, we're just building some cheap acoustic treatments for your home studio. For my case, my office downstairs. They're not going to be perfect. It's not going to be as good as some Acoustifoam, but it's under 20 bucks for what I'm doing, and really will work great to get rid of echo in almost any room. So the idea behind this is we're going to build a frame. Like I have here, I got two 2 foot by 2 foot frames, and then you're going to stretch fabric over it. Now, there's a couple things you're going to need, so let's take a look. First off, I'm building this as simply as possible with some simple hand tools. Assuming that you don't have any at home, you're probably not going to want to spring out and buy a screwdriver, a jigsaw, or electric screwdriver, a drill, and a bunch of other tools. Now, I would always note it's not a bad idea to buy tools. That's how I've gotten a lot of what I have from different projects. But if you want to do it on the cheap, here's some simple things you can do. First off, I would suggest you get a straight edge for getting angles. And I like this one with the lip on it, because then I can actually fit it on the wood this direction and draw my lines. Tape measure for measuring things. We're going to use a hammer and nails, just assuming that we're not going to use a screwdriver. A pencil. And then my favorite is one of these little cobalt coping saw frames with 3 blades. So you got 3 blades, and then you got this cool saw that's in a frame. So you see the frame and then your saw blade on the bottom. Now what's cool about this is you can saw your normal direction, or you can actually turn it sideways or at a different angle and loosen the blade by turning this handle and turn the blade with these little adjustments here. Makes it great for sawing around corners and gaps. Something else you're going to need obviously is fabric. Generally a thicker fabric. You can find that at any fabric supply store or Walmart even. That's where I got mine at. And a staple gun. You could do this with a just a regular stapler, but if you can, spring for the money, buy yourself a staple gun that'll do staples and little brad nails, and you won't regret it. Last but not least will be our material. Now I'm using these are 1 inch wide by 2 inches tall by 4-inch long lengths of wood. You can find these at almost any hardware store. I got these at Lowe's. There's a couple different price points. I like to buy the ones that are 99 cents. They're cheap. A couple of them will do a project. These are what I build my pedal boards out of. That way you can inexpensively build a quick project, build a quick pedal board, and toss it if you need to. Now, the downside to these, I would say, is they don't always come straight. Sometimes they'll come with a weird curve, either this direction or this direction. They might not always be the same length. So you'll need to pick through them and find some pieces that are going to be straight and match up with each other. Because even like if I stick these together on one end and the other, as you can see here, these are not perfect. And they're not the same length. But for what we're going to be doing, they'll work just fine. You can spend a little more, get a little more precise, but we're going cheap, we're hacking it up anyway. So first off, you're going to want to measure how big your frame you're going to want. Something you could do really would get a piece of construction paper or even some Scotch tape and take your ruler or tape measure into your basement and actually measure out and tape a frame so you can get an idea for the size you want. I actually was going to go with this is my first frame cut in half. I was going to do a 4-foot frame by 2 feet, and then I got downstairs and realized that was huge. So measure out what you need. You're also going to make sure that you have fabric that'll fit over that frame once you're done. So now that I got these two done, I'm going to go ahead and build my other frames. I'm doing two 2-foot by 2-foot frames, and they're just square 2 feet, even though it's not perfect. And I'm going to do two 2-foot by 1-foot frames, but do whatever you need for your space. These are going to be what I need for my use. All right, so I'm just going to run you through building a frame. Basically, I've got one of my 4-foot lengths here for my two 2-foot by 1-foot boxes. Now, I've already realized that I only have 2 of these left, so I'm actually only going to have enough to build one box, because this one will be 2 24-inch posts will be one side, and that'll cut into 4 1-foot pieces, which means I only have 2 2-foot sides, and then I'll have 4 1-foot sides, which won't be enough, but that'll be okay. So I've measured 2 feet, 24 inches here. Now I did make sure to measure this full length, because even though these are supposed to be 4 feet, 48 inches, this one isn't quite perfect, but it'll work for what we have. So I measured my line there. Now what we're going to do is take our straight edge, and we'll just draw a straighter line. Alright, so now I've taken my pencil and my straight edge, and I've drawn a straight line to follow along with my saw. So now we'll take our saw, and we'll cut this in half. Now just for fun, I stopped sawing mid-saw. First off, to show that you can use any space as a workbench. This is a wonderful Frigidaire deep freeze used by many a craftsman to build stuff on. I do have a workbench, but of course, that's what my workbench looks like. So, the deep freeze is what we're using. Now, I'm making sure I'm cutting that I'm firmly holding the board down with one hand, and then I've got the rest hanging off, and I do have it pressed up against the wall. But you can see where we drew our line. I'm just cutting with my saw, actually at an angular level, and I'm pulling the saw towards myself. So I started at an angle, and I'm sawing it with the line to make sure I get as straight as a cut as I possibly can. Alright, now we got our frames finished. Here's our third one here. I nailed these together. Feel free to overbuild. I did 3 nails on each one. If you're going to drill, buy yourself a drill bit set. You should have one anyway. And use a smaller drill bit than your screw size, and pre-drill some holes, and then drill your screws in. Otherwise, I'm splitting the wood. Let's get back inside and get these things wrapped. Alright, so here we have the fabric laid out. I've already cut a square out. You can see I have my one frame, the larger, the smaller of the two. And then I have one that I turned into a panel. Now, this is where it gets tough. You're first off going to need to make sure that you have enough of a lip around the fabric to attach it how you want it attached. For these, I went, the deep side, when the 2-inch portion is the deep side of my panel. So I actually need to make sure I have enough fabric to wrap that edge there. So here's one of the panels I just did. Now there's no real there is an exact science as to how to wrap these. I don't know how. My suggestion would be use black fabric, because then you don't see the stretch marks if there's lines. If you do something like checkered or a design and you pull it wrong, your lines won't be straight. As you can see, like here, there's a line in the fabric. You're going to want to use a lot of staples, especially for a larger frame size. I guess one thing that I can give you, what I do, is I usually start in the middle on all the corners, and then I start pulling tight. I do one side. You want to think of it being, this direction and then this direction. So I generally will do, a couple staples here, pull it tight, and then do this side, make sure that it's tight this direction. And then I'll start on the top and bottom and pull, that direction to pull it all out. And then edges, you'll just have to find a creative way to fold those or cut them, and I'll trim the excess. But then that'll give you a nice looking panel. Alright, so here I've got my panels done. I've got my 2 larger panels just sitting on the ledge on the back, and I hung my smaller panel above my computer on the front of the room. Now the nice part about a project like this is it's cheap. For under 20 bucks, $6 for the 6 pieces of wood, $2, I'll say $3 with tax for some nails, and then I spent $4 on fabric. And you can create some really nice looking panels. The big thing you're really going to spend your time on, though, is making sure you get that fabric tight, so you create a really nice looking flat panel. And your edges will look nice too. If you spend some time, obviously I have some wrinkles where my folds are, there's some imperfections, but these are going to look nice. Alright, so now we're done with the build. I've taken the panels off the wall. Now hopefully you can already hear an increase in echo, because I sure know I can. I'll be recording the room with my Behringer C2 overhead condenser mics. This is actually the microphone I use in the majority of my videos for my voice. I find they work really great. They sound awesome. Actually, they sound like much more expensive overhead condensers, and I would consider this probably one of the best microphones that Behringer makes, and they're incredibly cheap. Anyway, let's get started. So I backed away from the microphone now, and you can hear I'm pretty distant. The room has a lot of reverb in it, but there's one specific sound I'm trying to kill. It's this high-pitched fluttering ping. Do you hear that sound, that fluttery ping at the end? I'm trying to get rid of that. So now let's throw our panels up and see what we can do. Alright, so now I've hung my panels. I've got one panel over my computer, and I've got these two in a diamond formation on the back wall. Already I can hear a reduction in echo. There's still reverb in the room, but it's mostly in the lower register. When I clap my hands, we don't get that flutter anymore. It's a solid snap. It's a pure clap sound. And that's what I'm going for. Now I'm going to get some more panels and throw them up in the room to really treat the sound, but this is just to give you an idea of how much of a difference a few panels can even make in any space. Alright, so just to give you better back-to-back, let's hear a before clip. And now after we've hung the panels. As you can see, there's quite a difference in the sound in the room, and that's just with 3 panels. Anyway, I hope this will help you to get out and build yourself something for your room to help treat the sound in the space that you're in, and to know that you can do it on a pretty cheap budget. Well, as always, this is Andy Home Guitar Mods. Thanks for watching. As always, keep rocking and keep modding.